2020. This is Kingston Planning Board public hearing night. Hello, Robin. And
hello.
Hello. And we are meeting remotely as we have been for the last few months. And before we get started with our meeting, we're going to be going through the requisite compliance statement and checklist. So as chair of the Kingston Planning Board, I find that due to the state of emergency declared by the governor as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, and in accordance with the governor's emergency order number 12, pursuant to Executive Order 2020-04, this public body is authorized to meet electronically. Please note that there is no physical location to observe and listen contemporaneously to the meeting, which was authorized pursuant to the governor's emergency order. However, in accordance with the emergency order, I am confirming that we are, first of all, utilizing Zoom for this electronic meeting. All members of the board have the ability to communicate contemporaneously during this meeting through this platform, and the public has access to contemporaneously listen, and if necessary, participate in this meeting through dialing the following phone number, and that would be 1-929-205-6099, and using the password 2915-5678, or by clicking on the website address that's located on the agenda for this meeting, which can be found at several physical locations around town, as well as on the town's website on the planning board page. And the town's website is www.kingstonnh.org. We previously gave notice to the public of the necessary information for accessing the meeting, including how to access the meeting using Zoom or telephonically. Instructions have also been provided on the website of the board at www.kingstonnh.org and going to the planning board page under the departments tab. If anyone has a problem, please call 603-642-3342 or email pb@kingstonnh.org. In the event the public is unable to access the meeting will be adjourned and rescheduled. Please note that all votes that are taken during this meeting shall be done by roll call vote. So we'll start by taking roll call attendance. When each member states their presence, please also state whether there is anyone in the room with you during the meeting, which is required under the right to know law. Okay. So let's see, who have we got? We've got myself, Glenn Koppelman. We have Selectman Representative Richard Wilson, board members Robin Duguay, Peter Coffin, Chris Bashaw. Okay. So we're going to do roll call and ask you to state your presence and whether or not you're alone. And Ellen, for the time being, you'll be a voting member until and if we get a couple of more members in.
Sure.
Okay.
So Glenn Koppelman.
Present and alone.
Richard Wilson.
Present, alone.
Peter Coffin.
Present, alone.
Robin Duguay.
Present and alone.
Chris Bashaw.
Present, I have a full house.
Chris, are you far away from your mic?
I don't think so.
Okay, your voice is pretty soft.
Sorry, I don't know.
Okay, all right. All right. Okay, so those are the board members we have with us at the moment. We also have our town planner, Glenn Greenwood, and our town engineer, Dennis Quintal, with us.
Just for the record, Ellen Faulkner here and alone.
Thank you. Ellen is our planning board secretary and administrative assistant. and will be a voting member until and if we have a full board of regular members present. All right, so we have a couple of miscellaneous items to deal with before our first public hearing at 6:45. And Glenn, I know you have something, so why don't you go?
Yes. I met with the owners of the 1686 house about a month ago, maybe even 6 weeks ago. And they're interested in adding an additional use at the restaurant, a small beauty shop. And so we talked for a while about the fact that it isn't allowed use, but that it would require site plan review, and the discussion came up about how much site plan review. And I can't find that we have a site plan, a recorded site plan for the 1686 house, which doesn't surprise me. It's been around for a very long time, right, as the name implies.
Yep.
So my expectation is that this would trigger the need for a plan to show this new activity on site, but I wanted to touch base with the planning board and make sure that that was the feeling of the board.
Glenn, you were breaking up a little bit as you were speaking. Can you repeat what the additional use is?
Yeah, they'd like to do a small beauty shop.
Really?
So a really different use, yeah.
Well, that's very different, and obviously it's going to have septic impact, traffic impact, parking impact. It's although I could very well be that use is going to be at different times than maybe the restaurant. And
yeah, that's what I thought as well.
But it is a significantly different use.
Yeah, and we don't have a site plan for that site.
I'm surprised that we don't have something, because I mean, there has been work done on the site.
There was a parking lot expansion.
Yeah, yes.
15 years ago, which probably means it's really 25 years ago, because my mind isn't good that way. But that's all I could think of that's happened there.
Well, yeah, that's what I was thinking. The only other thing was when they created the lounge area. But that's way back.
Yeah, I don't personally remember that.
Yeah. Well, why don't we open it up for Lynn? If you're speaking, Lynn, we can't hear you. Oh, there you go.
Nope, I can hear you.
Vicky's trying to get in.
I know there was a lot line adjustment not all that long ago. It was done between it and neighboring properties.
Okay, but not a site plan.
No, I don't know about a site plan, but I know there was a lot line adjustment.
Yeah. All right. Any other thoughts from the board?
Well, I agree with you. There's going to be a major septic issue. I would guess there'll be a new septic system. So that alone may be enough to justify a site plan.
Well, I think just by virtue of the fact that it's really a completely different use, not even associated with the current use that's there.
Yeah, that would be that's my take, is that it constitutes a real change of use and an expansion of the uses on site.
Yeah. Does anyone feel differently than that? I'm seeing Peter cough and shake his head. No.
No, I don't. I think Glenn said it perfectly. It's a change of use.
Robin, any thoughts?
Same.
Okay. Chris or Peter? Peter Bakey or Chris Basha? Peter, I know you just jumped in, so I'm not sure you caught that, but
which hearing are we on, Glenn?
well, we're not. We haven't started the hearing yet. This was brought to us by Glenn Greenwood. It's an additional proposed use at the 1686 house for a beauty shop in addition to the restaurant.
That'd be a change of use in my book.
Yep.
My thought.
That was Glenn's
I will-
opinion as well, and he wanted to run it by the board.
Yep, I will reach out. We'll have that discussion. Thank you very much.
All right. Chris, did you have anything else to say on that? No. Okay. Ellen?
Yes.
Oh, and I guess you're back to alternate status.
Yes, I've already put that on there.
But did you
We're
have
just
any
going
comment
to-
on this?
No, I agree.
Oh, okay.
But while we're here, can I ask if Peter Bakey is alone?
I am alone.
And what about Lynn?
So the record will reflect that we now have a full board sitting. We have 7 voting members and we have 1 alternate member. All right. Okay, we did receive a piece of correspondence, and it's probably not enough time to discuss it now, but I'm just curious if folks were able to access it and read it before the meeting. It's regarding a flower farm possible operation on Bob White Drive. Did folks see that letter? Some yes, some no. Okay. Well, we'll read it, but we're going to do it after the hearings, because I won't even make it through reading the letter before we run out of time. So, all right. While we have a couple of minutes, there was a set of minutes. Ellen tells me that were tabled to the next meeting, which would be this meeting, and those are the October 20 minutes. If the board would like to take those up now, we could do that.
I make a motion, we approve the minutes of the October 20th meeting as written.
I'll second that. That's Peter Coffin.
Okay, motion by Lynn, second by Peter Coffin. Discussion? All right, Ellen, how can we do the roll call?
Sure. Glenn Kopelman,
Yes?
Lynn Merrill,
Yes,
Richard Wilson,
Yes.
Peter Bakey,
Yes.
Chris Bashaw. Is that a yes?
Chris?
No.
Chris,
Abstain?
was that a yes?
Abstain.
Abstain. Okay, yeah.
I
Got
don't
it?
know why my mic's not picking up.
Yeah. We got you now.
Okay, now I've lost track where I was. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Peter Coffin,
Yes.
Robin DeGuay.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Let me read the legal description for this first hearing. We're going to call it, it's close enough to 6:45. We will do this one now. The applicant is Ken and Irina Anthony, 3 Concannon Road in Kingston, tax map U1 lot 70. The applicant is submitting a conditional use application to allow for reconstruction and expansion of an existing house within the shoreline protection zone and wetland conservation district. And we cannot do very much with this tonight. And if you had a chance to read Glenn Greenwood's comments on this, you'll know why. But Glenn, why don't you just give us a quick synopsis?
Sure. As I looked over the plan set a few weeks ago, it occurred to me that although it does in fact require a conditional use permit, that small addition that they're making to their house is actually on a non-conforming lot as well, and so it would constitute an expansion on a non-conforming use, which the planning board isn't authorized to provide approval of. It's something that has to have ZBA approval. So I contacted Ellie. We asked her board if they could meet with us as a joint board tonight. And they agreed to do that, except we realized that after they agreed to do that, we didn't have time for them to post a meeting. to join us here tonight. So this is going to be taken up at the ZBA meeting next Thursday night. And so it seems the better part of valor for us to not act on it tonight, continue it, and act on it after the ZBA has had a chance to take their action on it. And the applicant was made aware of it. Because they had to then apply to the ZBA. So everyone is aware of what's going on. And it would just require a motion by the board to continue to the 15th.
Glenn, your internet connection is a bit spotty, but I think we got the drift. So unless the board has any particular questions, what we're looking to do is to while the applicant is going to the ZBA to seek a variance, we are looking for a motion to continue this hearing to December 15th at 6:45.
So moved. Do we need a date for plans, any time for plans to be in, or we already have set plans?
We already have them.
We have
Okay.
everything.
Yeah, okay, we have everything we need. The only other thing I would say would be that should we advise them they need to contact Newton because they're within the distance to the Newton shore? I don't know if they're doing any construction on the Newton side. It didn't look like it, but I think their shoreline setback is a setback from the shore in Newton. So I don't know if you advise them or suggest that they at least contact the Newton Planning Board to see if they need to address that with them.
They'll have to do that because they can't record the plan that they prepared without the endorsement of the planning board in Newton.
Okay, thank you. All right, so I'll just let the motion line move it to December 10th.
There are questions though.
Oh, 15th.
Well,
15th.
we have a motion by Peter Coffin, a second by Richard Wilson, and question by Ellen.
Well, if Newton needs to be notified, do they have to be notified legally or just give them a phone call?
Because what they're doing doesn't require a planning board approval. It just requires their endorsement. The note that would go on the plan would be one that says that they're only endorsing for the purposes of recording.
Okay, so we don't really have to contact them
No.
before the hearing?
Nope.
Okay.
Would Newton have been notified as an abutter?
They don't own the land next to this piece. This piece is partially in Newton. My only concern was that the shoreline setback would have to meet Newton's requirements because the shore is in Newton.
Okay.
But as long as they've been notified, I mean, they could always go back and deny it, and when they get the plans after they've been to us.
Now we're only authorized to apply the rules that we have in Kingston.
Right. Yeah, no, I understand that part. I just wanted to make sure that they were being notified at some point because some of their rules may apply.
Okay. Any other questions on the motion? All right, so the motion is to continue the application for the Anthony's to December 15th at 6:45. Ellen, can we do the roll call, please?
Sure. Glenn Copeland,
Yes?
Lynn Merrill,
Yes,
Richard Wilson,
Yes,
Peter Coffin,
Yes.
Peter Baiki,
Yes.
Chris Bashaw,
Yes.
Robin Duguay.
Yes.
Okay. All right, I see, Ellen?
Where do you want them on the agenda? Do you want them before SLS or after SLS?
before.
I'm asking.
Well, probably before, although,
Didn't we already tell SLS that they're,
Everybody's scheduled for
266.
6:45.
okay.
So do you want them first or?
Glenn, any thoughts?
I would prefer that we did them first, but just
The board
We
okay
don't
with
have-
that?
I'm waiting.
I see. Richard, yes? Lynn?
I guess my only thought is there may be a lot of people at the meeting for SLS, and that would get them done and finished with a Zoom call earlier in the evening. But it doesn't matter one way or the other.
The only thing I will say to give you further information is that this application was in time to be on 2 weeks ago, but because SLS was already on, they were bumped to December 1st. So
Let's put them first.
All right.
Yeah, I think so.
Peter and Chris, you guys okay with that? Not you, Peter Coffin, I saw you already, Peter Baking and Chris Bashoff.
And Dennis has a question.
Yes,
I see that. I'm just trying to get through the board here.
yes.
Okay. Dennis,
I was just wanted to be sure that, make sure that they got a copy of my comments or everybody else's comments, so that way there, if they were able to have time, they could address the comments before the meeting.
yeah.
I didn't send them to them because I send them directly to the planning board, so.
Right. So Ellen and Glenn, are we providing those to the applicant?
We will do that.
Oh, okay.
And we also have for them, Glenn, depending on whether you or I contact them, Conservation Commission has left a package for homeowners for that area of shoreline and everything for the homeowners to have. So maybe we could let them know that was in the building waiting for them, or I could mail it to them if they prefer. There's a couple of weeks, so that might help them in their presentation.
I'll let
Conservation,
Barry know that.
yeah, Conservation also had given comments. And I don't know if they may have already, Evie can help us out here, but they may have already contacted the homeowner, but about the rain garden. And I know Dennis had comments on that, but I don't know if we want to forward those just to make sure that they have that information as well.
I believe I saw a rain garden on the plan.
Okay, then good.
Okay. All right, so we have continued that, the hearing to the December 15th. They will be first on the agenda. And Ellen and Glenn will get back to them to let them know and also make sure that they have copies of Dennis's comments. And yours as well, Glenn, although I think yours were mainly related to the issue that we're talking about, the variance required.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Okay, so our second public hearing is for Berkshire Dominion Holdings, also known as Saddle Up Saloon, 92 Route 125, Kingston, New Hampshire, tax map R8, lots 40 and 40A. And the legal notice reads that the intent of the application is to make amendments to the previously approved site plan in an effort to bring the site into compliance per the selectman's letter of deficiency dated June 16, 2020, as well as to clarify operation of business as desired by the owner. So along with the materials that you have for this, Ellen also included that letter from the selectman from June 16th. So you have that. She also supplied us with a copy of the current site plan, the currently approved site plan that's on file, which
That I think Glenn
outlines.
sent.
I'm sorry?
I don't want credit for something that Glenn did.
Okay. Thank you, Glenn.
The planning board office did.
The
Okay.
planning board office did. Okay. So you have the old plan, you have the new plan set, you have the letter from the selectman from June 16, you have comment sheets from both Glenn and Dennis, which we will go through. And then we also have department comments as well, which we'll get to at the appropriate time. So who here is representing the applicant?
Hi, Rob Waters here for Berkshire Dominion.
Okay.
I also have the restaurant owner, Bob Pagliarolo, here with me, behind me. He's not tech savvy enough to log in himself.
Okay, Ellen, did you get that?
I think so.
Okay. All right. Well, normally the way we do this, Rob, is that we ask the applicant to tell us what the proposal is, and if you have plans to share, we can do that electronically through this Zoom function. I don't know if that's something that you're going to want to do.
Well, obviously, this was prepared by Charlie, and I have, actually, I don't think I've literally ever sat in on a planning board hearing, so forgive me if I'm a little off base on this, but when I spoke, Charlie was unable to attend. So Charlie had said to me in preparation for the hearing that the application should speak for itself. So I certainly don't want to sound ignorant to the process, and I'm open to anything you have to say, but I believe our position is what Charlie put forward in the letter.
Yep.
But how can I help clarify things? And it's just I'm not sure.
No, all I'm doing is offering you as the applicant the opportunity to address the board, to explain what it is that you're proposing. If you have nothing to add beyond what was submitted, then we can just go forward and deal with that.
I think, and again, open to your input. Perhaps I would love to answer questions that the board might have, might be the best way to proceed forward, as Charlie has presented, I believe, a comprehensive plan. Would that make sense for me to answer questions that you may have? Would that be helpful?
Right. Well, yes, that's fine, Rob. Let me, since you haven't been to one of these before, let me just explain the steps that we will take. I did the introduction to the hearing. The first step is to offer the applicant the chance to address the board, which you've just done. The next step is for us to go through department comments. We have comments from our town planner and from our town engineer from their review of the plan. And I don't know if Glenn or Dennis, you can tell me whether or not Charlie has received or the applicant has received copies of your comments.
I did send them to him, but just this afternoon.
Oh, okay.
I don't have any comments or records of anything. All I have is the application that Charlie submitted.
Yes. Okay. All right. So I can tell you, Mr. Waters, that the comments, particularly from both the town planner and the town engineer, are fairly extensive. So we'll get you copies of those. I don't want you feeling that you need to be scribbling down all these notes as we're going through them, but you'll get copies of, or Charlie will get them. I don't know how this. Are you running everything through Charlie or?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So we'll get them to Mr. Zilch. So we'll go through that. We have also comments from some of our town departments who have had a chance to review the plans. And once we do that, if you wish to make comments on those comments, you can. We'll then open it up to the board for discussion and questions. We'll then open a public comment period so that if there are any abutters or members of the public who wish to ask questions or make a comment, they can do so. And then we'll go back, bring it back to the board and decide how we're going to proceed from here.
Sounds good.
Okay. All right. Okay. So why don't we start? Both Glenn and Dennis, I know you guys had some comments, and do you have a preference as to which one of you goes first?
Glenn, could I ask a question, Glenn?
Sure.
Just a quick question. I'm taking some notes here. So, if I'm not mistaken, this hearing was originally scheduled for November, correct? And they were put off to December? Was that correct?
Not to my knowledge.
I believe it was postponed. They were originally on schedule for November, but they
It
were
wasn't postponed, Peter. It was, the agenda was full, so the board put in an extra hearing date.
I understand that. So they were postponed, correct?
They weren't postponed, they just weren't scheduled until December 1st.
Okay, so I guess, I'm sorry, I thought they were actually scheduled originally for November.
No?
I guess I don't understand why we're having a hearing and our people that are having a hearing have not received this correspondence yet. I thought we were gonna get this out to the applicants prior to the meeting.
I'm thinking that Thanksgiving probably had something to do with it.
Okay, curious, thanks.
Okay. So Glenn or Dennis, do you have a preference as to who goes first?
No,
I'll go first. Doesn't matter to me.
Okay, Dennis.
Okay, so my letter is dated November 25th. I did receive the 4-sheet plan set, application, letters, deeds, and waivers, copy of the DES shoreline permit application query, and a letter from the Galloway Trucking stating that the recycled asphalt was tested and approved by New Hampshire DOT, item 306, substitute for gravel, as it still allows drainage. So this plan is very similar to the plan that was submitted by the planning board in July of 2015 and May 2018. I submit the following comments for the board to consider. Number one, the southerly end of the paved parking now shows a 58-foot infiltration trench. The detail shows just crushed stone 8 inches deep and 18 inches wide. Stone voids will be the only detention storage and limit the volume of runoff that will be treated and infiltrated into the ground. The previous submitted plan shows a trench 2 feet wide, 2 feet deep, with embedded 12-inch perforated high-density polyester pipe, which would provide additional stormwater detention storage volume for treatment and infiltration. I recommend change back to that detail. Number two, the area west of the paved parking shows fenced-in outdoor grass seating area, in quotes, for 20 tables and 80 seats. I believe an active pedestrian travel area on grass will then compact the topsoil, minimizing the infiltration capacity of the surface and causing additional untreated stormwater runoff to the pond. Either this area should not be active pedestrian travel or provide designed to capture surface runoff with a device that will allow infiltration, filtering and infiltration. Number three, a previous plan showed the proposed dry well in this area west of the parking to capture, treat, and infiltrate stormwater runoff from the roof, that portion of the roof. If a dry well will not be effective in this area, perhaps another best management device could be designed to filter and infiltrate stormwater runoff from the roof. Number four, a portion of the area behind the restaurant near the pond and at the southwest corner of the restaurant are shown as crushed stone over sand. A detail should be provided to verify treatment and infiltration can be obtained. Number five, the Galloway letter states that recycled asphalt is an acceptable product as a substitute for gravel. The State Department of Environmental Services Alteration of Terrain Bureau considers compact gravel to have 95 to 98% stormwater runoff. Therefore, considered as an impervious surface. Can best management devices be designed on this plan to treat runoff from these impervious surfaces within the buffer zone of the pond and its outlet stream? That's a question. Number six, 9046D, appropriate buffers. The planning board may wish to evaluate whether the existing buffers are adequate. This plan shows the restaurant lot having a high percentage impervious in the 50-foot shoreline protection buffer. It shows allowing outdoor seating and grilling in this buffer zone. Outdoor seating typically requires a more stable surface than grass or crushed stone, which will contribute to more surface runoff into the pond. A more detailed landscape plan should be required for the area within the 50 feet of the shore of Mill Pond and its outflow. With development and impervious surface so close to the pond surface water, every effort should be made to treat and infiltrate the stormwater runoff. The goal is to improve the water quality of the pond. Number 7, typical construction sequence, erosion control notes and details are provided on sheet 4. It appears the only proposed construction area is at the south end of the paved parking. These notes and details are too general and should be site-specific to this project. Show where, and quotes, the hay bales, barriers, and the siltation fences, and the quotes, will be used on the plan, because that's what it referred to in one of the notes there. So number 8, reiterating my comment from previous submittal regarding 90811, although the letter of intent lists changes to this plan in an effort to bring the site into compliance and for continued use of existing conditions, the applicant is showing limited best management practices for treatment of some stormwater runoff from impervious surfaces on the site. From comments above, I believe more can be done. Number 9, inspection of the proposed work should be required during construction. An as-built plan should be required to verify compliance with any approved plan. Number 10, Article 907, should a performance guarantee be provided? Should have a question. That's a question. Number 11, I would recommend the applicant comply with the requirements of 908-16.6 and have a note on the plan. Article 908-16-3A21 and 908-16.6A. The long-term operation and maintenance procedures documents must be recorded in the Registry of Deeds. And so that's part of the previous comment about performance, meeting the requirements of 16.6. And that completes my review at this time. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Dennis. I'm assuming that when Charlie gets a copy of these, he might have some discussion to be had with Dennis. Is the board okay with the 2 engineers conversing directly? Either shake your head yes, no, or thumbs up or something.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay. Good. Okay, Glenn, you want to go?
First 4 of my comments are I'm just bringing them to the board because I want to be certain that we all understand what is being achieved here, and how this is an attempt to bring the site into compliance. And so I'll speak to that with each of the comments. So my first comment is lot R840 is in the town shoreline protection district, which has a maximum lot coverage of 20%. Note 15 indicates the existing building coverage is 28.4%. So my comment is any exterior new proposed activity would require ZBA approval for a variance from this requirement. Now, I understand that the proposal is not actually increasing the building size. And so I think if what we're doing is establishing the existing condition, and this existing condition has existed out here for a long time. And like the board to go on record as acknowledging that. And if that was done, I think then ZBA relief would not be required. So that's comment number 1.
Glenn?
To agree that because the use is within the both the shoreline protection district and the shoreline protection district, there are conditional use permits that are required by the planning board. And in these instances, they don't require additional studies or anything. They require that the board answer the the statements in that section of the ordinance regarding the use, because this underlying use is a permitted use in both districts. So those conditional use permits are just additional statements that have to be made on the record for the use. Statement number 4 is, according to section 11011 of the C3 zoning district, 20% of the total lot area must be landscaped. Again, I'm applying this standard to an already developed lot. And so I think that the council from the board is, they're not changing the existing standard that's on the site. And so it's inappropriate for this requirement to be applied. I just want the board to say that for the record. Sheet 3 of 4 is the topographic plan for the property, but I wasn't able to find any topographic intervals indicated on the site. Might be because it's an extremely flat site for most of it, but there is some topographic elevation change on lot 40A, and I didn't see that reflected on the plan either. So I just wanted Charlie to take a look at that. It might be that his the nomenclature for that was turned off when he printed it. It didn't print out the intervals. The applicant, according to site plan review regulations, need to provide building elevations. In the instance where the building is already constructed, we typically allow photographs to be used for that purpose. So that's not difficult. 19 of the existing 49 spaces on lot R840 are for the most part located on the state of New Hampshire property. My question is, doesn't an easement exist for these spaces? And I believe that, again, what we're dealing with is this is the existing state of affairs out there. I think the town has talked with DOT about this in the past, and DOT has shown no interest in making them move those parking spaces. So I just wanted that that discussion to take place within the purview of this site plan review. There are 2 areas shown for snow storage. One is along the shoreline of Mill Pond and seems an environmentally poor location for parking lot snow storage. The second area is to the north of the parking lot and abuts sections of the existing drainage network. A sign is indicated to ensure the snow does not intrude on those drainage features, but I was wondering if there was some other way to ensure that there was an intrusion by the snow on those drainage features. It might actually be that those drainage features aren't really in use at the same time that snow is there, and that might be the legitimate answer, but it was just a question that I had. The distances of existing water and sewer facilities to a distance of 200 feet from existing facilities on abutting parcels is not indicated on the plan set. That's a requirement of the site plan review regulations. And again, it's a requirement that we generally, it's a requirement that's in place to ensure that new facilities aren't placed in a way that will negatively impact existing facilities on abutting parcels. Again, this isn't the case here. We're talking about facilities that already exist. So if that's the case, that's just what the record will be able to show. The existing sign appears to be on state property. Is there an easement for this location? I believe the case is that it isn't. That sign has been there for a very long time. So I anticipate that both the state and the applicant are aware of its existence, and it hasn't been asked to be moved. I wanted that discussion to be included in this site plan. 50-foot landscape buffer is required between lot R8 and 40A and R8 lot 42-1, which is the abutting parcel to the north. This isn't detailed on the plan, and it would impact the number of parking spaces that are on that plan, so I'm not sure if that's something that wanted to be addressed by way of fencing. I know in the past we've used stockade fencing in lieu of the 50-foot landscape buffer, but again, we're not dealing with a new circumstance here. So it makes this review a little bit more interesting. I also have that on lot as part of this number 11 on lot 40. Much of the new proposed outdoor activity is very close to the shoreland, and could more detail be provided to show that the activity will not detrimentally affect Mill Pond. And again, with number 12, what the plan shows is the existing number of parking spaces associated with the site. And it does not comply with the standard parking lot formula that our site plan review regulations require. We're dealing with an existing situation, so perhaps a waiver request by the applicant of the full requirements of the parking standards, because there would be many more. There would be the requirement under our site plan review regs would double the number of spaces required, and there isn't available land for that to take place. Parking area landscaping is also required in our site plan review regulations. Again, there's an existing situation. So the thought of installing landscaped buffer areas within the parking lots seems inappropriate in an existing circumstance. And finally, this proposal incorporates the use of the floating dock, which was specifically prohibited by the most recently approved site plan by the town. So my question is, has the Kingston Fire Department determined that the dock is suitable for such use? Is that discussion taking place? Because use of the dock is a request of this site plan application. And those are my comments.
Okay, thank you, Glenn. And as with Dennis, I'm assuming that you're going to get these comments to, you said you did provide them to Charlie.
They have been emailed to Charlie, yes.
Okay. Will you be reaching out to him to get his feedback on this?
I will indeed.
Okay. All right. And I know that you and Charlie talk regularly, so we don't have to give you permission to do that.
No, we talk regularly.
All right. Two more department comments here, and then we can open up to the board or to Mr. Waters if he would care to make a comment. But Evelyn Nathan is on the call. She's the chair of the Conservation Commission. Evie, I have written comments from you. Would you like me to read them, or would you like to speak to us directly? Evie? Okay.
Okay, no, can you hear me now?
There we go.
Okay.
Yes.
All
yes.
right. Please go ahead and read them, but I do have an additional comment.
Okay.
All right.
So with regard to this application, the Conservation Commission's comments read this way. The Conservation Commission is concerned that the new snow storage plan will result in salt and contaminated runoff into Bartlett Brook. Also, the Conservation Commission would like to see more detailed information on the infiltration trench and where it will be placed relative to the parking lot and brook. So that's the written comment that we received. And Ellie, if you have something else, please go ahead.
Yeah, I drove by today and noticed aeration devices in the pond, which I hadn't seen before. I don't know if these are permitted, but they require a permit from DES. The pond is not eutrophic, so there's no absolute need for them. I assume they're there as decoration. So I'm wondering if permits have been granted for those devices.
Mr. Waters, do you happen to know the answer to that?
Well, as far as I know, that there was a need for them because of what do you call it? The buildup of silt, muck, whatever. So that was able to break away the again, silt, whatever you want to call it. So I do not believe that permits were obtained. If that is what the town, or if that is what's supposed to be done. I know that we own the property where those are, and I'm not 100% sure how that plays in. I know that owning the waterways, I know doesn't matter to some extent as far as conservation and the rules of a body of water. I thought that in placing those, it was within our rights to do so because we owned the property. However, with that comment being received very well, we can certainly look into whether or not permits are required, and if they are, then by all means they will be applied for, if that is an acceptable answer.
You're saying the pond is privately owned?
Not the pond, that section. So the deed encompasses that section of the pond. So in other words, if you, our deeded land extends, and again, without looking at the site plan, I want to say maybe, I don't know, there's maybe 50 or 100 feet off the building. Because I believe back in the day, that was swampy area. I believe that was, and it was not part of the pond. And I believe the dam, they installed the dam, and I'm just going from my belief, and that made the pond bigger, which then encompassed that area. Does what I'm saying make sense?
It makes sense, but as of now, that pond is, the shoreland is determined by the high water mark of the pond. So the pond is a unit. I know that you need permits for those devices. So, and I'm not aware of the pond being eutrophic as you're describing, which means no oxygen. So you might want to check to see if those are legal.
Okay, we can certainly look into that. I can tell you that I know that since those were installed, the silt or buildup, it gets really bad, and I know that that has helped that. But again, those are probably questions for someone that's a little bit smarter than me to answer. So I think what you have prompted is for us to actually inquire about what is needed for permitting. I think that's the gist of what you're saying. Is that correct?
Oh,
Right.
okay, maybe Evie, you and someone at the Conservation Commission can deal with this offline with the applicant, and now that you've made them aware of it, perhaps you can have some conversation and work that out.
Okay.
Okay. Mr. Waters, would you have a suggestion as to who the right person would be for the Conservation Commission to work with? Would it be you, or would you prefer to have them go through Charlie?
I think that I would be, or my office, whether or not it would be me or Colleen, but I think that reaching out to me, I don't think we need to involve Charlie in that.
Oh, okay. And that's Berkshire Dominion Holdings.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, Ellen, if you can send me Rob's contact information, I'd appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, Evie. Anything else before I go on to the next one?
No.
Okay, thank you. So the other comment we have from town department is the building inspector, which came in, well, anyway, it's for this hearing. It came in within the last couple of days. So there's a memo, and there's also some citations of the zoning ordinance. So let me read the memo to the board and to the applicant. As I said, this is from Robert Stewart regarding this application. Robert Stewart is the building inspector. Number one, items from note 4 on revised plan dated 10/12/2020. Floating dock proposed to be utilized for outdoor service. is the quotation from the plan, and Mr. Stewart is asking to explain fully the above use and show code compliance for a floating dock, including American Disabilities Act issues. So that's one item. Second item on the plan regarding signs, he says bring all new signs into compliance with sign ordinance, and he's referring to section 303.2 of the zoning ordinance, and he has actually attached that to this, but you can certainly find it in the zoning ordinance. Third item under this one is related to the parking lot, and he says new sign installed without a permit must read event. Sign is not located on owner's property. The parking lot has recently been paved over without stormwater calculations. Numerous cars are parked there on a daily basis. And then he has a second category, which he is titled Other. And there are two things here. One is labeled Takeout. And he says ice cream window installed without planning board approval or building permit. And the second item on this one, second floor space. And he says that this space has been divided into 3 or 4 rooms. Use of the space as office only was allowed by previous Fire Chief Bill Seaman. Large corner office has a desk for manager and a conference table. Liquor locker storage space has been created to secure liquor inventory. Changing room for use by wedding parties has been created. See attached photo. Remaining space left open. All walls built with untreated pine. Fire compliance unknown. No sprinklers in building. Should have planning board approval, building and electrical permits, and fire department compliance. Use of the deck by others beside office staff, such as live music bands, exceeds that permitted by the code review of Robert Cummings, PLLC, dated 8/31/2017. So that's the extent of the building inspector's comments. And as I said, he's also attached a page out of the sign ordinance with a couple of things highlighted, and a photo which shows a bride in a gown holding flowers. And I'm assuming that that might have come from a website or perhaps a Facebook page or something. Anyway, and Robert isn't on the call with us, is he, Ellen?
No.
No. Okay. All right. Well, these are more detailed than his usual comments. So, Ellen, could you see that these get to Charlie Zilch as well?
Mhm.
Thank you. All right.
Glenn,
Okay.
I sent to Charlie all the comments from inspectors and Dennis and myself.
Oh, okay. Well, Ellen, scratch that.
Well,
Thank you, Glenn. Okay, so that is the extent of the written comments that we have from all of the various folks.
There's one from the selectmen.
I'm sorry?
There's one from the selectmen.
Your letter.
I think that was their previous
That was
letter.
a letter from last summer.
Oh, okay. All right. Sorry.
Oh, that was provided to the board for reference. That was from 2016, was it not?
No.
I'm sorry.
No,
June.
it was from last summer.
All right. Sorry.
Dated June 16, 2020. And this, Mr. Waters, this was the letter from the select board to you, citing various items and issues with the site and so forth and so on. So it was provided to board members for background and reference.
All right. Sorry to bring it up.
No, that's fine. Since all the board members have this, I don't imagine that you want me to read this. Okay. Glenn or Ellen, does I know it was addressed to Mr. Waters, but it might be helpful if when Charlie is looking at all of the comments, that if he doesn't have it, a copy of this might be good for his reference as well.
He does have that.
He does. Okay.
Is that the letter that we were responding to, or is that a different letter?
Well, it's a letter that was addressed to you, dated June 16, 2020, and it says on May 29th, following reports that modifications had been made, so forth and so on. As requested, we are providing you with a list of these deficiencies. Please note that the
I believe that's what part of the prompt for what we're going forward. It listed out a number of violations. Right. Okay, yeah, I've seen that.
There were a number of items out of compliance, and it would be my assumption as well that the plan that we're working with now, as far as an amendment, is at least partly responding to this letter.
Yeah, we were addressing the purpose of this was addressing all of the concerns that were on there, and that's what I had hoped to be done. We did.
Okay. All right. Questions from the board at this point? Lynn?
So my only question is, and I'm now puzzled with the legality, because as I look at the plan, I'm seeing a boundary line that goes right through the pond. But it's my understanding that any body of water with more than 10 acres also requires permits from the state for the docks.
Yes.
And I'm not sure that the floating dock meets the state standards. So my suggestion would be that you might want to look into that and just make certain that you're in compliance with DES's dock permitting as well. I know you've got, I don't see on here boundary line as far as footage is concerned to show waterfront water frontage. But when I looked at the town tax map, it showed that you've got in excess of 325 feet, and you're allowed one dock for every 75 feet. So certainly you have, at least according to the town tax map, frontage for the 3 docks that are there, but I'm not sure that the size of the docks and the placement of the docks complies with the state standards. So you just might want to look into that.
Okay, that's good advice. I will do that.
Other questions or comments from the board? Chris Bashaw?
Yeah, I just wanted to comment when Glenn was going through his comments. I don't know if the board has to formally do it, but I'll express I recognize that all the items that Glenn touched on as existing conditions, I recognize that all the items that Glenn specifically touched on with that, were obviously existing elements. So I just wanted to make it noted that I recognize that, unless the board's going to take some type of formal vote on some of those issues.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Glenn, I think that's a good point. I think that anything that doesn't increase, that's not added building or anything that we consider structures would be covered. However, certainly Dennis's comment about the permeability of the wrap that was used for the paving the parking areas is applicable, and that we need to deal with the runoff. You have to have a system then in place that would deal with all the runoff from the parking areas that would meet the requirements and also meet the state requirements, since it obviously is close to a state-owned pond. And the other question I had, when we had the original site plan showing read it, a 500-gallon dry well that was supposed to have been installed and it wasn't. We discovered in 2018 when we did the request for an amended site plan, which was withdrawn eventually. So that whole area that is outdoor is now outdoor seating. Was listed as no seating was going to be in that area. Of course, that plan never got put in. And then there's a perf pipe that was going to go at the, southerly end of the parking area there's a number of things that we had outstanding from the 2018 review, and I'm not sure if anything got done on that because that application and the results of that site walk never resulted in any approval. So I guess I would ask Dennis is, do we still have those outstanding items in terms of handling stormwater runoff that need to be dealt with on this new plan?
Dennis, do you have any comment on that?
Yeah, I mean, I looked at my previous comments that I had from before and kind of modeled my current comments on that. And so I think I've kind of given some advice to the applicant and Charlie to see if they can come up with more best management practices to curb some of the contaminants that could go into the pond. And I think there's more that can be done. We found that out when we did the site walk. There was a number of comments at that point in time. I don't think we have to bring them up now, but I think that the ball's in their court, I think, to come up with best management practices for stormwater management.
Okay. So the comments that you've submitted to us tonight, Dennis, are encompass that issue.
I believe so, yes.
Okay.
And the other thing was going back to what Chris had said about existing structures and impervious surfaces. There's been, it looks like it's been an addition of things like a water feature, which is nice, but it's right next to the mill pond. I mean, immediately next to it, and it's impervious, and obviously would have had to have an electrical permit and building permit pulled, but it's one of those things that looks like it's been added on without planning board approval and possibly without town permits or anything. And it's certainly within the, it's within 20 feet of the state pond, so it should have required state approval. And it doesn't show up on the plans, not that water feature or the, bridle platform, whatever you want to call it, that were all built next to the water. So I would say that there's some increase in impervious coverage, including the, I can't remember what they referred to as, but the pavers that were in the seating area to the, let's see, north of the screened porch, that were all addressed back in 2018 and nothing was done about it, but has been an increase in impervious area. So if we're going to approve any plan that includes any of those additional structures, it's going to have to go to the ZBA because you're increasing the coverage area. Those weren't covered in the original approval.
I'm sorry, just what structures are we talking about? I apologize. I didn't follow.
Okay, the paving, hard pavers and a seating area that's
oh, okay, I'm sorry. You're referring to the impervious, any impervious
structures that were created since the original restaurant, the previous owner. So that there's a water feature, and then there's I don't even know what it's called, but it's someplace for like a photography platform for brides. But you're fine, except that they've what you've done is done building that's not on your approved plan, and it is building that increases impervious coverage, and it's also building within 20 feet, let alone 50, of the DES owned pond. So
the platform was already there. That was there for forever. If you're referring to what I think you're referring to, you're talking about. I think
it's in your video. It's a fairly new platform with it looks like some archways over it and stuff.
Yeah, that was redone, but certainly it's all stuff. It's difficult without having the comments here in front of us. it's difficult. We can certainly address, it's much easier, obviously, when it comes over in writing. But I think that what you're referring to, well, actually, I know was there. I'm surprised that wasn't on a plan. I know
Not
that
on a plan. I know there was a gazebo that was refinished that I think, and that was mentioned, that was proposed to refinish, repurpose it, and I think to move it. And that was on the plan and it was approved. But I think the other structures were not. But I think the bigger issues are the wrap paving on the parking area, what you might call overflow parking or event parking. And I would also refer you to the Conservation Commission's comments about any snow storage that's going to run off into the waters. And Dennis has covered that on previous notes and on this one again. So I think that's going to be something that he and Charlie can look at and make sure that there's not runoff into the water. But I would have to say that anything that, if we're going to say you don't need to go to ZBA for increase of impervious coverage because of pre-existing conditions, I would think that things that have been added wouldn't be covered by that and would have to get ZBA approval. So that's my comment on the coverage. That site is very tight and it's gotten significantly tighter.
Okay, thanks, Peter. Lynn and Robin, did you also have your hand up earlier? Oh, Lynn, go ahead, and then Robin.
So just to piggyback on what Chris was saying and on Glenn's comments, if there are certain things that would normally in this day and age require conditional use permits, but because they've been there since the 60s, are we looking to have a notation put on the plan saying that these are non-conforming uses which have been accepted by the planning board? Or are we looking to take a vote for the record? How are we looking to address those issues? What is the proper way of putting those issues behind us?
I think that the conditional use permits should still be voted upon, because I don't think that I don't want to prejudge what the planning board is going to say, but I think when you look at the statements in the conditional use permit, I believe that the planning board would be able to issue those.
Okay.
So I think that those should occur. On those issues that I've spoken to, about the non-conformity of the building, I think having that be a part of the record would be really helpful, just so that in the future we understand what the thought process was. And I think it's an appropriate thought process. I just would prefer that we document it.
It appears that the applicant is trying to address the issues.
Exactly.
It would be nice if we could address what needs to be addressed and move on with just the few issues, the major issues that would be remaining that for future meetings.
So just to comment on that before I go to Robin. Normally, Glenn, when there's a conditional use permit as part of an application, the applicant would provide a statement in writing and respond to those conditions so that the board can then act on them. Is that something that we've asked for?
I have not asked for that, no.
Okay. Well, okay. Robin?
Yeah, so my question was specific to the parking area and what.
Which parking area?
Well, that's what I'm at. So, and maybe I misheard, but have there been changes since the original plans in, what was it, 2015 to current? Or is the surface area that's covered exactly the same?
Size wise or texture, material wise?
Yeah, I think Robin, I think the areas are the same,
Okay,
but
I'm
on-
sorry. So I was unclear on that.
the areas are the same, but on the area that is for event overflow, special event parking, which actually is located on the second lot R840A, not the lot that the restaurant is on. That parking area got resurfaced from being one of dirt or gravel or hard pack or whatever it was to now having an asphalt type surface on it. So
Thank you.
there were two answers to your question.
Richard?
Going back to the pre-existing conditions, when this process is finished from the planning board, I think every existing condition needs to be noted on the plans. Because one of the largest complaints, or most often complaints we get there, is construction without permits. And I want to be able to say, no, that was there, or no, that's been added. As recently as November 22nd, on a Sunday, there were construction trucks there doing work. No permits pulled that we know of. Maybe they were doing work of something else, maybe we're doing maintenance, but I want the plans to have every detail on them they can, so we know in the future what's new and what's existing. So we know how to act upon complaints and building permits.
Can I comment on that, please?
That's what, just a second, Mr. Waters. Just a comment from me on that, Richard. I think that anything on the site that's visible, if you will, as part of the site plan is something, that should be captured and documented. Oftentimes, if there are things going on inside of buildings, that doesn't necessarily get captured on the site plan, except for maybe notes about uses and so forth.
Right, I understand, but that's why I think we should take votes on all these existing conditions. I'm not trying to change them. I think they need to be noted, though, so we know what's existing, like that platform we're talking about. I mean, I think I know what they're talking about, and that has been there forever. But, then you get into, did they need a permit to repair it, or did they replace it? And, that's for future building inspectors and stuff to decide in building permits, but we need some kind of groundwork to start that process from.
Yep. Okay. Mr. Waters?
So just to be clear, well, two things. One is I appreciate the comment that just came through, and would certainly like to do anything to make this process easier. But I would like to just comment, I have heard that in the past about construction trucks being there, even as of recently. I'm quite certain there has been no work performed recently, but there are a lot of people that eat there in the middle of the day that have construction vehicles. So we want to be careful not to confuse the patrons and those that are actually doing work. But that having been said, just to be clear on what the request was the request to document, could we just restate that? The thought was to document everything inside and outside to what is existing, so then we know what changes are. Did I hear that correctly?
That is correct. We mainly outside as far as I'm concerned, so we know what's there. I mean, inside there should be building permits and everything and have it called up to the latest date.
Yeah, we did that. We see, that's the interesting part also, is that I found every comment that I've heard tonight has been very helpful. And no disrespect to Robert, but his comments were a little more confusing for me. They weren't as clear. But the fire chief, we had Robert in there to inspect the building. We had the fire chief in there. We had, I think, a couple others, but I know in relation to the upstairs, that was where the liquor storage was put in. We had the fire department there. We had Robert there. We addressed everything. The fire department had no concerns. And then the instruction for me was to apply for a permit for what was done, which we did. So, but again, I have no problem with if you want to go in there, or if someone wants to go in there and see what's there, I have no problem with that, because we're not trying to hide anything. We're just trying to solve these problems.
And I'm not trying to say you're trying to hide anything. I'm saying I want everything updated so we know existing conditions. The fire department was okay with the upstairs on the grounds that it was being used for basically nothing. When you start putting people up there, an office up there, then the pine walls are not sufficient. As far as people eating lunch there in construction vehicles, I have a picture of them wheeling a generator out of a trailer. So unless they were taking that generator into lunch, you know, they were doing work, and the restaurant was closed at the time they were there. So
I think that might be a little off. I mean, I'm not really sure, but I guess if we have photographs, if people are taking photographs of people wheeling generators, it's just a little weird. But that having been said, the fire chief was there when the walls were put up. He did not have a problem with the fire coating on the walls up there. I was there for that meeting, and I spoke with them directly. But again, so these comments can obviously all be taken down, and we can address them certainly one by one in order to make this process easier going forward, because it does seem, I mean, some of it's a little weird to me, but again, all based upon very logical concerns. So I guess I need not look into every comment, but just the basis of the comments. And I think that all of the basis, I think they're very logical in making sure that the site comes into compliance. I think that's what we all want.
Yeah, and as Richard was saying, when we get to the end of this process, we want to make sure that whatever plan the planning board signs off on is a good representation of what actually is there, and it provides the baseline for going forward.
Yeah, I think that it would be very helpful to do that, and I think that it would be very helpful for whatever is prompting. I'm not sure how to word it, but I think that there's a little bit of fire comes in that is sometimes not helpful in resolving issues, and I think that if we can kind of look past some of the drama, I guess, and come to a resolution, I think that it's going to help us move forward, and I'm sure that we would all agree with that. So whatever it is that I can do to help anybody on the board see things clearly, I have no problem doing it.
Yep, oh, appreciate that. So once, I mean, we're probably getting close to wrapping this for tonight, but we have a couple of more steps to go. But one of the things is that all of the comments that have been submitted in writing from the departments and so forth, and from the town engineer and the town planner, all of that has either gone to or will go to Charlie, and those can all be dealt with and addressed. And when we end up meeting again, we should be able to just tick those right off the list. So, are there other comments or questions from the board at this point? All right, Dennis.
Along the lines of comparing what was there in the past, I just happened to pull out the plan that was submitted for review in 2014. And, just as an example, it shows the gravel driveway going into the dwelling house, the 3-bedroom dwelling house way out on 40A. And that gravel area is kind of expanded on the new plan. So just to let you know, Rob, maybe that's something that can be easily shown by Charlie as to what that expansion is and the mitigation for runoff. So that's, I didn't really look at all the features on that plan from 2014, but I guess that would be a good place to start as far as an expansion from 2014 to today, as something to show on the plan as to what changes have been done. It's pretty clear on the 2014 plan compared to the 2020 plan. I just wanted to bring that up. So.
Okay, that's a good point.
Okay. Peter Coffin?
Sorry, I'm trying to unmute. I did have something that you may want to address when you redo the sheets the next time. You have a note, live entertainment is proposed hours shall be limited to 10 p.m. And you know that was kind of a sore point this summer. And I would hope that you would modify that to indicate that you're talking about indoor entertainment, since outdoor entertainment was addressed before. And we have it in the minutes that that was not an approved use. So, so I think you want to clarify along the lines of clarifying what you mean on these plans. That request should stay indoor live entertainment. If you want to ask for outdoor entertainment, you can try, but it's probably not going to happen.
Okay, now again, without looking at the rules and the laws, there's a sound ordinance, I think, that controls obviously the decibels of music that goes out. I believe they were asking for outdoor music or outdoor entertainment, but I guess your point is that you'd like it to be clarified and separated into two different categories, indoor entertainment and outdoor entertainment. Is that what you're saying?
Right, yeah. And so, you know, for one thing, it would make it easier, you know, if the board was prone to granting the indoor entertainment that you've been doing, that would be one thing, and then could vote individually on the outdoor entertainment. That might be easier. Right, and just that may be what you want, and you may want to specify that the way you did in the previous hearings we had. You know, if it's unamplified acoustic outdoor entertainment, or if you're having amplified outdoor entertainment. And
I think it's a very good point, and I think that should be separated into two different categories, because I know that outdoor entertainment, I think, is important in the summer, but obviously it's also important that the neighbors, and it's not disturbing anybody. So perhaps you just brought up something unamplified or something, but we can address it separately, I think, is a very good idea.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. Other questions from the board before I open it for public comment? Okay, let's go to public comment. We'll open that now. I only see, is there anyone in the waiting room that you, the hosts, haven't let in yet? No? Ellie, you appear to be a member of the public at this point.
That's correct.
Would you like to...
I don't have, I was curious to see, we've had so many issues with the property at Saddle Up, and I'm glad to see that you've got all the issues on the table, and I'm glad to hear that you all will be working through to get it onto the site plan and resolve the issues accordingly. It was a challenge for many people this summer, and I'm just glad we're working on it. I think it's a good thing.
Okay, thank you. Any other public comment? Okay, we will close public comment then for this application for tonight. What's the pleasure of the board at this point? Or Glenn, are there any specific items that you'd like us to address before we move on with this one? Oh,
I'd actually like you to consider invoking jurisdiction.
Jurisdiction, yes, yes.
So moved.
I'll second it.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the motion.
Chris moved it and I seconded it. Peter Coffin.
Chris Bashaw motion to invoke jurisdiction. Peter Coffin seconds. Mr. Waters, just so that you understand that that motion is assuming the board votes it, that it means that the application is complete enough for the board to consider further, and it also starts a 65-day time clock for the board to come to some decision on the application.
So that would be a good thing for me, I guess, if it's.
Yes.
Yes, because if we
Yes.
didn't do that, it would, yes, that's correct. You
Then I support
good
it.
thing for you.
Did I win?
Very good.
No.
No, but you're in the game this time.
All right, well, good. That's a start.
Well, the good news is that because Charlie did a very nice plan set, it's considered complete enough, and therefore we can act on it. So that's a good thing.
Good. I like good news.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. Is there further discussion on that motion? All right, we'll do a roll call vote. Ellen, please.
Glenn Koppelman,
Yes?
Lynn Merrill,
Yes,
Richard Wilson,
Yes.
Robin DeGuay,
Yes.
Chris Bashaw,
Yes.
Peter Baiki,
Yes.
Peter Coffin.
Yes.
Okay. All right, so the application has been considered accepted, and the process begun, and the time clock started on it. So, Glenn, any other specific items that you think we should deal with tonight?
No.
Okay. Obviously, Charlie has some things to work on based on the comments that were submitted, and so now it's a matter of how much time he might need to address those and to get new sets of plans back to us for a future meeting. So,
And I think you guys have a good working relationship with Charlie, I think.
we do.
Yes.
We do. The only thing we don't have is him here to say how quickly he can do some of this stuff. So,
And that's
but
been
we
that's been
can.
tough with Charlie lately. I don't know if you've experienced that, but I know that his schedule is kind of jammed up. But perhaps, I think Glenn communicates with Charlie regularly, I think, right?
He
do.
does.
Yeah, so you guys can probably work out the logistics of that. Do you feel confident you'll be able to?
Well, the only
We
reason,
have to make a determination tonight for time and date certain to reconsider this.
Oh, okay.
All
I
right.
that's
wish I
So
could.
in light of, normally we would go out a month, so we would be going to the first meeting in January. And backing up 2 weeks from that would be the date for new plans to be submitted.
I think that's aggressive for Charlie.
and we've got holidays mixed in there as well.
Yeah.
So do we shoot instead for the third Tuesday in January? And the first week of January for the plans to be submitted?
I'm going to actually leave that at the pleasure for the board's opinion. All I know is that in talking with Charlie, I know that he's bombarded, and I know the more time that he has, the better it is. But again, I don't know about the timing logistics on your end, so I'm going to leave it at the pleasure of the board. But my only input would be, because of the holidays and because of everything going on, just push it out as long as you think is reasonable. That's my only comment. I don't have any input beyond that.
Yeah.
Why don't we
Okay.
go to the first meeting in February? That's only another week, and that'll give him the extra time based on the holidays.
I think that sounds better also. February seems less intimidating.
All right, before the board goes into any further discussion on that item, Ellen, you were trying to say something somewhere before?
Basically, what you all have come up with.
Okay, all right.
So if we went to the first Tuesday in February, that's the 2nd of February.
Okay, all right.
I make a motion, we continue this hearing till Tuesday, February 2nd, with plans due into the planning board office by noon on Thursday, January 21st.
Second.
All right, motion by Lynn, second by Richard to continue this hearing to February 2nd at 6:45 PM with revised plans due to the planning board office no later than noon on January 21. Richard?
What about our time clock?
That's about a 60,
60
61 or
days.
62 days.
Yeah.
So
Well, it's close, but we're still
still
Okay.
within.
Okay.
still here.
As long as we don't get a snow day.
Well,
You
and
want
Mr.
to ask for the continuance now, so you have that the applicant's right here and it's gonna give you 90 days for jurisdiction rather than run into a snow day or something, or COVID?
Right. That's what I was thinking. We're pushing that 65-day clock. We ought to extend that to make a motion to extend that.
Well, I think, doesn't the applicant just have to
Applicant asked us.
do the motion?
Yeah.
Sure. Can you guys extend that to 90 days?
Sounds,
Can Lynn and Richard, can you roll that into the motion maybe?
And that the,
at the
the
request
clock
of the
be
applicant.
extended to 90 days.
The jurisdictional
Yeah,
clock
thank you. Yeah,
be
jurisdictional clock extended.
be increased to 90 days from 65.
With the applicant's approval.
And
Agreement.
with the applicant's
Yes.
approval, and for the record, is the applicant okay with that?
I have the record already showing that he is.
All right. And Richard, you are the second, right?
Yes,
And you're good with that?
yes.
All right. Okay, any further discussion on the motion then? Okay, Ellen, should we call the roll, please?
Glenn Copeland,
Yes?
Lynn Merrill,
Yes,
Richard Wilson,
Yes,
Robin Dugway,
Yes.
Peter Coffin,
Yes.
Peter Baiki,
Yes.
Chris Bashaw.
Yes.
Okay. All right, Mr. Waters, thank you very much for joining us.
And I want to thank you all also. I think this was very productive, and I will communicate with Charlie also, and we'll get this moving. We'll get this moving in the right direction. Continue in the right direction.
Perfect. Have a great holiday. We'll look forward to seeing you in February.
February, and thank you all very much for your time.
Thank you.
All right, bye-bye.
All right. Let's see, we've taken care of the minutes that were there. We have one item of correspondence, which again was emailed out to folks, and some of you have seen it, some of you have not. But since not everyone has seen it, I should probably read this. It's dated November 18, 2020, from Thomas and Elizabeth Hopkinson of 2 Bob White Drive in Kingston. And it's regarding a request to review a business proposal for a small-scale flower farm at 2 Bob White Drive. Dear Chair and Planning Board members, we have owned our home at 2 Bob White Drive since August 2017, and during that time have invested time and effort into improving the land and growing flowers and vegetables on our property for personal use. It has been a positive visual impact for our community and small enough to be farmed by us alone without the need of additional help, a tractor, or any type of large machinery. We also grow completely organically. Entering the 2021 season, we would like to sell our surplus flowers and possibly some produce through a delivery subscription or CSA. CSA stands for Community Supported Agriculture, and just in case anyone's interested. Given the limited acreage, this would be a small operation. It would not require the building of any permanent structures. Other than our garden space, we would just use our existing garage and tool shed for storage. We also have a small 8-by-8 foot temporary cattle panel greenhouse, which we use in the spring for seedlings. There is an opening to our property on Acorn Drive where we could possibly put a small farm stand with bouquets and some fruits and vegetables. However, given the limited drive-by traffic, we most likely will deliver or choose 1 to 2 days a week when customers can pick up their items. Again, given the size of the business, the number of customers would be small and arrivals would be staggered. We would be certain to obtain any insurance required for such operations. There is also the possibility of selling directly to florists. In that case, flowers would be grown and harvested on our property and then delivered directly to the florist's place of business. We might also host occasional bouquet making nights, which we anticipate to be around 6 people on average. Sales would almost entirely take place during the growing season, which runs May through to June through September, October, depending on the weather. We want to make sure we are working within the town's rules and ordinances. Thank you for your prompt consideration regarding this venture. Sincerely, Thomas and Elizabeth Hopkinson. So, before we started the meeting, Glenn and I were just chatting, and I wanted to make sure that we at least understood which zone we're in here, just in case the board was questioning it. And Glenn determined that it's in single-family residential zone. So open it up for discussion.
Well, it would not fall into a hidden business by any means.
Right. But it does fall into agricultural.
Was that ever rewritten?
Well, we adopted,
Right, the state
Okay,
definition.
okay.
and I believe we concurrently added agricultural use into each of our zoning districts. Did we not do that? Can we confirm
By
that?
right, I think.
I mean, we already had the ability written into the single family ag zone, but I think we added it to the other zones, and we even expanded it to agribusiness in the industrial zone, if I'm not mistaken.
I think that's correct, but I'm checking because I want to be sure instead of just think.
Yes. While you're looking that up, Glenn, the other part of this is that it's not straight agricultural alone. It's a little mix of some other things. It's the discussion in here about holding classes in the house adds another dimension to the use.
Although that could be considered home.
Right, in-home occupation, right?
In-home occupation, because it would not be visible.
And it's also 6 people's no more than having people over for dinner. It's not like they're gonna have, a derby party or something where they have 100 cars.
That.
I should just take that.
Gee, Richard, I don't know who does that.
To me, it's more or less the same thing that Joe Prespatino does. He is single family residential. I just checked on the maps, agricultural, and this is not agricultural, but he has a small lot. He has other spaces too, but he has a small lot that he grows things on. It's a very small farm stand on a road that's not well traveled.
Right. But as you said, he is in, agricultural use is specifically allowed there. So it's really not an issue there.
Yeah, Acorn does not get a lot of traffic. There's maybe at the most 24 houses up past this one.
Or Bob White gets even less because it's a dead.
Well, yeah, but they're on the corner of Bob White and Acorn. Their stand would be on Acorn, but that it's dead end both ways. So it's.
Glenn, did you find anything?
In 103.2 of the single family zone language, it says in a single family residential district, the use of land is limited to single family dwellings and incidental uses such as private garages, boathouses, tool sheds, gardens, and the like. The raising of chickens and the sale of eggs in associating in association with a conforming single-family residence is permitted, but no roosters are allowed in the district.
How can you raise chickens without roosters?
You can purchase them.
So we didn't add specifically agricultural to that, huh?
We did not.
Interesting.
It allows gardens and the like.
Well, yeah, but I think that what that means is, like a family's vegetable garden for personal use. However, we did adopt the state's definition of agriculture. And I thought, boy, I would have bet money on the fact that we added that agricultural uses to all the zones.
I wonder if we did it under the definition of agriculture and said something like,
Wonder if maybe it's someplace else other than in the definition of the zone.
Except in rural residential, you specifically added it.
Oh,
I'm looking on the rest of it.
oh. So maybe it was specifically not added to single family.
I think you left it out of one, but I'm not 100% sure, but I'm looking just to see what it says on the rest of them. But it's specifically added in rural residential. It's the last little letter.
We added industrial agribusinesses in industrial.
Right, I remember that one. And single family ag already has it, so we didn't need to do that. What about commercial 1, 2, and 3?
Looking.
Why don't we?
Yep, you've added it to commercial zone 1.
Okay.
Why don't we table this to the next meeting until we can do our research? Instead of sitting there trying to fast draw on these. That's how we seem to get ourselves in trouble. We try to make these quick decisions and we find another definition that outweighed everything we did.
Okay.
Commercial zone, just so you'll know, commercial zone 1, 2, and 3, you added it in 2018.
Okay. So then we must have purposely not added it to single family.
I'm pretty sure that's what you did.
Yeah. Okay.
2019.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
2019.
So why don't we take Richard's suggestion of not jumping on this? I mean, particularly because this is not their growing season. So if we put off a discussion and decision on it for another couple of weeks, it isn't going to be an issue. But could the planning board office get back to these folks and let them know that that we're working on it?
Yep.
Thank you. And in the meantime, anyone who would care to delve into this a little bit more, that would be good. And Glenn, if you have any advice, that would be helpful.
I will delve into it.
Yeah, Glenn and I can look into it in the office.
We will delve.
Perfect.
We can delve.
All right. Dive deep. All right. All right, that is the only piece of correspondence I have. We've dealt with the minutes from October 20. And Glenn addressed the issue with us earlier about the 1686 house. So I have nothing else for us. Does anyone, Ellen?
I just have one question. At the last hearing with Sears Logistics, there was the thought that the chat function would be put out for additional public viewing other than just what was available that evening. The problem with the chat function is that there were some people who were chatting privately to board members, Mr. Greenwood, each other, and they did not think that that was public chat, and it is now. If we put it out there, it will now become public chat, and some of it is inappropriate language. So it's not out there yet. It is not on the cloud anymore. We do have a copy of it. I wanted to know if the board wanted to look at it, because in all fairness, there were a lot of comments from people that the board probably should see, I guess. But I'm not 100% sure that it's appropriate or legally necessary, but appropriate to put it out as public viewing, because there were the public who didn't know it was going to be public.
So what is the difference between a public and a private chat?
It sounds like nothing.
Well,
No, but I mean,
a private chat does go directly just to one individual and no one else can see it. But
On-
on
And that happens on Zoom?
Yes.
You can do that on Zoom? Okay.
Yes,
And that's-
but
and
on
that's-
the recording, it now, all of it shows. So there were people who were private chatting to Mr. Greenwood, but once it's recorded, private chats are now public. And I don't think the public was aware that things they might have been saying publicly would then be disclosed as a public discussion. Now, it could be edited, but at that point, if you edit, then you're gonna have somebody be suspicious that the chat was edited. My personal opinion is that the better part of valor is that you just don't put it out there, but that's the board's issue.
Robin?
So I know there were a couple private messages that I got, but I read them out loud to the group, so they should be reflected in the notes. But I'm wondering, for private messages that were not read out loud, if we just redact the private messages, put out the public messages, and have some sort of disclaimer saying that private messages were redacted based on the nature of their content.
They'd have to be edited. And
We
the
can just
board-
black
the
them
board
out,
select-
right?
Well, no, it wouldn't be printed out. You said you wanted to put it out as a viewing, not a printed.
Last thing we need is a lawsuit over printing something that somebody thought was private. You know.
But
well,
maybe in the future, we should tell people that anything that goes in the Zoom could be
Right.
made public.
And I think that would be legitimate. This was the first time anyone has ever tried to make the chat public. So it wasn't until we looked at it that it was like, oh, everything's out there, whether people thought it was private or not. So we weren't able to give a disclaimer. Plus, my personal opinion is the next time we have a meeting for anything, we're going to allow people to chat, that the only thing they should be able to chat about is that they'd like to address the board.
Correct.
Because some of the people chatting were being really derogatory about previous speakers who were just other members of the public. It was like it was a Facebook page, and I thought a lot of it was inappropriate. I think people lost track of that. It wasn't just private comments between people, that it was stuff that's supposed to say to the planning board, I'd like to make a comment at some point, I have a question, and then they ask the board the question, instead of everybody chatting back and forth and with each other. It's supposed to be for the board.
Tomorrow and get a decision on this. I think I need to call Sumner before we put it out.
I think you guys need to call Sumner or the AG's office. I think the items that were people at least thought were private chat would be considered protected information.
Me
but
too.
I think that was done in the public forum. If people request it, they probably have a right to it under 91A, because if it was done in any of the public chat, or if there was any type of quorum in a sub chat, I think that would be subjected to.
It wasn't a quorum of the board.
Yeah. So then we're all set on that. I think we'd be protected in not releasing items that were people assumed were private, but anything that was in the open public chat to everyone. I think if somebody requested it during 91A, we'd be hard pressed not to release it to them.
Let me, I have to talk to Sumner tomorrow on another issue, so let me run it by him.
I just want to know what to do. So we've already taken out, we went through it all and copied all of the questions. I just wanted to retype them to send to Mr. Dubé, because he's the one who asked for it. I don't remember if anyone else did, but he specifically asked for it. Most everybody else was just asking for the letters, which have all been attached to the minutes in the town clerk's office. I didn't send them all to you guys. You had them already. It's another 42 pages. If you want them, we'll send them out. But
I think
you
Mr.
guys,
Dubé,
you guys had them already.
saved the chat too, so that he already had that, the stuff that was in chat.
I don't know.
Obviously not the private that didn't include him, but the public chat, I think he had it, but that's good that he's officially got all the questions in one place.
So is the issue that Glenn saved the chat and so all of the private comments to him were visible, or was it that private comments to anybody were visible?
Anybody?
Anybody?
No, I'm not
Oh,
sure
no,
that that's the
it was
case.
just you.
I think
didn't-
on the
I don't
one
know.
that I recorded,
Oh,
it's only
oh,
chats that were private to me.
And that's
So
the only
I'm
reason.
guessing moving forward, if somebody other than the host or somebody other than Glenn saves the chat, none of those private comments will be visible.
That's correct. I
That's
believe,
true.
because I've asked people if anybody else saved it, and I haven't been able to find anyone else who did save it. I don't know.
We saved it, but the administrator of the Zoom site didn't, we usually don't need it. So after, and they only have so much room. So while we had saved it, it was deleted because that's what she does. But it was over Thanksgiving, so there was this. So I don't have a copy of it without private stuff.
But it sounds to me that Ellen, you may have hit on something, and Richard, you might want to run this by Sumner. When we run a meeting, a normal meeting that we have, if anybody wants to talk, they raise their hand to talk. And maybe the chat function should only be there for people to say, I want to ask a question, and have them actually ask the question, just as though they were standing in front of the room from their chat box.
Right, because if Glenn sees it, it can be like, oh, Mrs. So-and-so has a question for the board. Mrs. So-and-so, are you here? And then she can be allowed to not be muted anymore and ask her question. Otherwise,
I think that's the only way to do it.
There's also a way to disable it until the public comment period so that there's not that constant barrage of comments.
Background, yeah.
Okay, I just sent out 2 private messages, one to Glenn Greenwood, one to Glenn Koppelman. So you can see what it shows later. Because if we're saying this right, Glenn Greenwood should be able to see his. Glenn Koppelman, you should not be able to see the one I sent him because he's not a host. So you can see how that turns out.
right. Well, obviously I can't see it now. The question is, can I see it later?
Right, in print.
Right.
But I will talk to Sumner about both those to make sure we're doing what we're supposed to.
But Lynn, I think your comment is a good one, and it would also help us control the situation a little bit better too. If we instruct.
I agree. It felt like I was reading the comment section on a Facebook page during that meeting as it was all streaming down the side.
Right. So
Some of it's untrue.
So if we use the chat function merely to have people request to speak and not to ask questions, then it would run more like our in-person meetings do.
I thought at some point earlier in COVID, when I started using Zoom, there was an option for a button that essentially was like the raise your hand button.
There is.
So I think it would be probably more appropriate to just disable the chat. And then when we open up for public comment, people would actually push that. Because I think there are provisions, even if they call in, that they can hit *5 or *6.
Right, we'd have to announce that. And then you click on participants, and then on the bottom of the bar on the right, there's invite, mute me, or raise hand, and use the raise hand function. The only problem with it is that if we get a lot of people raising hands and we have a queue, A, you don't know the sequence in which they asked, and B, the raise hand does go down after a period of time. It drops off.
The other thing, if we ask people to use the chat function to request to speak, they can also put their name and address there, and we capture that for the record. And sometimes that's not easy to do, but.
Well, as soon as you open up the chat function, they're going to put whatever they want in it.
Well, that's true.
Just going on participant, I saw that 2 people did raise their hand, but it disappeared fairly quickly.
I
raised it and then lowered it.
Yeah. So.
Oh, okay.
But I'll leave it up there and see how long it takes. But, I know what I'm thinking of. I'm thinking of the reactions, the voting by thumbs up, for example. That does go down. That'll disappear after a bit. The hand stays up until you lower it.
The hand stays up until you actually click the button to lower it.
Yeah,
so I've got my hand raised, Now I lower it and it's gone.
I don't have a hand.
I don't know.
Click on participants.
Man.
Click on participants and go to the bottom. Yeah.
Bottom right
Okay.
hand, it says raise hand, raise hand.
Oh, I see where you are. Okay.
You're under the button that says reactions. Yeah, yeah. So you can clap.
Clap, thumbs up.
Oh,
thumbs
okay.
up.
Right
All
there.
right.
There you go. And that
Except I'm right
icon,
to the left
that
hand.
icon will disappear after a period of time. There, it's good.
It's gone quick.
Okay, well, we'll
I guess ask Sumner.
we'll work on that. Richard, you'll talk to Sumner.
Just
Okay. All right. Anything else?
Can I bring up the food truck?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, sure.
I don't know, Glenn, have you gotten anything back on the listserv?
I got one response back from a planner at the Planning Commission who just said both Newton and Fremont treat it like site plan review.
Okay. So I've pulled some other towns had pretty easily accessible documents, so I can sort of write up a summary and send that out to people. I don't know that it's.
Or send it Ellen.
Yeah, if you send it to Ellen, then she can distribute it.
Okay.
As-
Perfect. And then we can figure out what to do with food trucks.
There you go.
So I just had one more question too. The one thing we did different at the last meeting was we didn't read the 42 pages of letters.
Right.
And that was, certainly different. Did it, and I understand from Glenn Greenwood that some people were very upset about that. How did we all feel about it?
A lot of them were redundant, and I feel like in the spirit of making them accessible to people, if we committed to making them publicly available, which we did, that would seem the better option, because I mean, literally some of them were just copy and paste.
It was as if they had points that they shared with one another and they put them in the letters.
Yeah, and I don't think that's any different than times where, as Glenn's run the meeting, he said, well, do you have anything new or different, even during the public speaking portions when we're doing it in person? I get some people probably felt a bit disenfranchised because they wanted their letter read, but I don't know if it's because they wanted it read to the community, but all the board members, we obviously physically received all of them via email. So if the intent was to persuade us and how we voted on stuff, I think it gets the desired effect of them having a voice for that. But yeah, for the interest of time and how tough it is to conduct these meetings remotely, I think it was appropriate to do a condensed version, and as long as we hit all the topics.
Exactly. We did. Everything that was brought up in the letter was covered in the summary.
Yeah, I thought Lynn's summary was very good.
Was there any comment that you got back, the adverse feedback that you got back from not reading the letters, something that we should consider for a future meeting? Was there any constructive, anything that came back?
No.
It
Because
was
they're all-
basically vitriol. It was anger.
Which I found unusual due to the fact that most of the emails I got that had the letters attached specifically asked that I just make sure the board got it so the board members would read it. There was nothing about making sure the rest of the public would be able to see the letters and all that. So their intent was to make sure the board got the information in the hopes that it would influence the board in their discussions. So, but
Well, and again, I think if this were an in-person meeting, I would suspect if the same decision had been made, those people would not have commented publicly. But the lure of firing off a message privately to Glenn, is too irresistible for some people.
For at least one person, it was irresistible.
Are you still married?
Okay. All right. Anything else on that topic? All right. Lynn, I want to thank you for handling the meeting. I apologize for not being there. I feel bad when it's a situation where it's an important meeting like that, but it was unavoidable for me. So
She did good.
She did.
so I heard.
Thank you, but big shoes to step into.
You got your feet are okay. You're big enough.
Did you just called her big-footed?
I started saying it, I thought to myself, there's no good way out of this now.
You dug the hole, you've got to go in it.
There you go. So I'm in. All right.
But I helped you.
Yeah.
Does
Let's
anyone-
not put this in the minutes.
I'll leave this out. Does anyone want the copy of the chat, or should we wait and find out what the attorney says before it's disseminated in any way?
Yeah, wait
Yeah.
and find out, because otherwise
Let's wait.
Let's wait.
that may remove the option of not sending it.
Just wanted to check.
But Richard, would you prefer to have it to talk with Sumner?
I don't think I need it. I'll just tell him that bad things were said.
I mean,
He's a lawyer, he knows what that means.
I don't want it to get blown out of proportion.
Well, I know,
No,
but
it
if
wasn't-
he needs more detail, we can get it to him.
All right.
It's the issue of whether private chat can be
Part of the public chat.
can be made public.
And
Yeah.
without that person
Consent.
knowing it, because I'm going to tell you, it doesn't make anyone on the board look bad. It makes this man look, not you, the man who wrote it, it makes him look terrible.
Yeah.
And I think he would have an issue with that, knowing, because he's been into the planning board office multiple times for different things. And so I think he would have an issue with what he was saying being made public. So-
Yeah, and I think we would have an issue because I think there's a reasonable assumption that people would think a private chat is private.
Yeah.
The last issue of the night is don't forget I'm selling history books.
Oh, there's one more issue.
Oh, good.
There's a sidewalk Saturday.
Yep.
Just want to remind everyone.
No vandalizing.
There's
Is
a
anybody not going, so we don't wait for
fight
you?
walk. Ellen, I thought you said a fight walk, and I had no idea what you were talking about.
But she perked right up.
I'm
This sounds
debating
interesting.
not going because
Yeah.
18 acres just to walk the building.
Oh, you just have to come and say hi, bring me coffee, and then you can leave.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding about the coffee.
Lynn, I won't be there because the weekends between Thanksgiving and Christmas are my tree farm work. So,
Lynn, I'll go run the farm. You can go walk.
let me think about that.
I bet I can sell the trees for more money than you can.
Well, that's why I'm going to think about that. That might be a good deal, depending on how much you skim off the top.
I know, I'm only interested in really seeing the 107 entrance.
Hey, I bought a tree Saturday and never got out of the truck. Bought it from the Boy Scouts. They brought like 6 trees out, showed me, turned them, twisted them, said, I'll take that one. They loaded it up, put it in the truck. Donation.
Nice.
Maybe that's what you should do, Glenn. Have a tree fashion show.
Drive by.
I'll take it under advisement.
Get people a nice feet.
Okay, anything else? All right. So without objection, what time, my clocks always seem to be wrong. So who's got the time?
8:38.
I have 8:38.
All right, then we are adjourned at 8:38. And thank you all, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Excellent. Good night,
We're
everyone.
our best, Tammy.
Saturday.
Well, some of